Doing, hey, Cole, man, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, we are. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel on building and scaling your business. We're really excited about this topic and know that it is incredibly important and probably something that is top of mind for everyone, probably about 24 hours a day. So before we jump in, just want to introduce myself. My name's Melissa. I am your moderator for this session, and I am a Principal Customer Success Manager with League Apps. I've been here for a little over 5 years now, and I am basically, outside of onboarding and training some of the lovely folks on this panel and our partners in the League Apps community, I really focus a lot with the strategy side of things, understanding what the goals are for the businesses and help achieve them, so both in the platform and beyond. So very excited to introduce our fantastic panelists. They're a really great group of professionals, very forward-thinking with just tons of experience growing their organization. So I'll let you guys speak for yourselves here and spend a couple minutes just introducing yourselves, your organization, and really just the path that got you here. So we'll start with you.
Sure. Craig Dixon, co-founder and co-CEO of the St. James. We build and operate premium destinations, events, and digital experiences for maximizing human potential through the power of sports. And I'm here because I grew up in the DC area being irrationally passionate about sports and was always a really powerful influence in my life, and eventually found an opportunity and a problem that we thought was big enough to solve, and made it a career.
Hi, Darcy Carroll. I'm with the Richmond Volleyball Club in Richmond, Virginia. We've been around for more than 40 years. I kind of joke and say I became the accidental executive director there. Really, my background was nonprofit. I spent 20 years at the Red Cross, and so we operate as a nonprofit. So I kind of brought that to the club. But I had played volleyball for 30 years and have enjoyed it. And enjoyed learning about the youth sports world.
Hey everybody, good morning. I'm Rick Abbott. I'm the CEO of Cooperstown All-Star Village. We are a baseball resort based obviously in upper New York State. And my background was I was the head of global operations for ESPN for 15 years, then went to NBC and worked at 30 Rock for a few years, and then was the COO of Circuit of the Americas, the Formula One track down in Austin, Texas. And so most recently, David Blitzer and Josh Harris just bought Cooperstown All-Star Village in January and found me, and I joined up then. So kind of drinking through the fire hose here a little bit on youth sports, and this conference has actually very much helped me, kind of like coalesce everything. I went through my first season this summer. So 100 days of 10,000 kids and 40,000 parents. Actually was it was a lot. So it was good though. It was great learning.
I'm Eddie Sutton. I'm the ops director for Manhattan Soccer Club. My path to soccer was circuitous. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania where there was no soccer in the 60s that I know of. But in any case, I began as a volunteer and an ASO coach, and had no idea what I was getting into, but my son had a strong right foot. And I gradually took on every role at the club that I possibly could find, volunteer, manager, was a board director, and at some point they, I'm not sure it was good sense, hired me to work full time. My other career was as the general manager of Strand Bookstore, the largest independent bookstore, at least on the East Coast, for about 30 years. But now it's full-time soccer, 1,300 kids, all levels from about 4 years old to men's and women's highly competitive teams in the USL2 and USLW leagues. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Cole Van Nice. I run a global investment platform called Elysian Park. It was initially enabled by the ownership group of the Los Angeles Dodgers, which, if you haven't been paying attention, it's a very interesting cast of characters, led by Mark Walter, the CEO of Guggenheim Partners, which is a sneaky big New York, Chicago investment firm. I think they manage somewhere over $350 billion currently under management. And Todd Bowley, former president of Guggenheim, now runs his own firm called Eldridge Industries, which happens to be another shared shareholder with Craig down there at St. James. And the two of them have been on a tear. They, in addition to the Dodgers, they acquired a third of the Los Angeles Lakers last year, and most recently Chelsea Football Club, which was the big news a couple of months ago. Also, as part of the ownership group, we have Magic Johnson, who it turns out is not just an incredible basketball player, but he's an amazing entrepreneur and an entrepreneurial thinker. As well as Peter Guber, one of the co-owners of the Golden State Warriors, and then Billie Jean King and Alana Kloss as well. So we started Elysian initially with a North Star of investing in companies that are building the future of sports. And so when we say that, we mean companies that are changing the way we watch sports, the way we experience sports, the way we participate in sports, and even to some extent, the way we define sports. And esports is probably the best example of that. Believe it or not, right now in the US, in about 2,000 high schools across the country, the average roster size of a varsity esports team is larger than baseball, which is shocking to me anyway when you think about it. So we invest across stages, so we'll do anything from $500,000 into an idea that's still quite literally on a whiteboard, all the way up through conventional venture rounds, sort of $2 to $10 million checks, up to much larger transactions, and the largest we've done so far has been the $100 million we put into DraftKings. So the point is we sort of move up and down the capital structure. The only constraint we have from our ownership group is domain. So anything that sports, anything in the sports ecosystem and where it intersects with things like health, commerce, tech, and technology. So that's a big picture. Us, we're very proud shareholders of League Apps and work very closely with David Blitzer's group as well on a number of things. So a lot of commonality here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Like I said, impressive. So I'll tease here. I've got my questions I'm excited to dive into, but definitely be prepared for some Q&A at the end. We want to make sure the audience gets their shot at this gang here. So Craig, we're going to start with you. I have had the pleasure of checking out the St. James in person, and it's an absolute spectacle. It really is. It's a massive organization. You've not only grown the business, but you've grown and scaled multiple businesses within that. In and of itself. So I'd love to just have you chat a little bit about the key aspects of growth and scale and just what you want to share with the leaders in the room and what you want them to know, that what you know now that you wish you had known in the beginning.
So for those of you who have not been, the first product that we introduced in the marketplace was our flagship campus in Northern Virginia. It's 450,000 square feet under roof and features everything from an indoor field house that has a FIFA-sized turf field, 2 NHL-sized ice rinks, Olympic pool, squash courts, golf simulators, batting tunnels, premium health club, full-service restaurant, meta spa, an event center, and a whole host of other things. You can think of it in some ways as like a Disney World for people who are into sports and wellness, right? And that product was really designed and developed to attack 2 high demand problems that exist in every major metropolitan area around the country that my partner and I confronted when we were kids in DC, growing up and being irrationally passionate about sports, and then continued to deal with as we became adults and parents ourselves. So the first problem is that there's not enough turf, courts, ice pools, etc., to meet the demand of the people who want to use them. And to the extent that this stuff does exist, it is usually poorly maintained and underprogrammed, right? So you got that one massive problem where you just don't have enough places to play and they're just not set up properly for you to do the things that you want to do. And then the second high demand problem is that for the active family, you face this highly fragmented marketplace where you're on the one side of town to take a child to soccer, you're on the other side of town to take a child to hockey, and if the parents are also active, it's a real knife fight to figure out who's going to pick up whom and how everybody's going to get their needs met. And so the kind of core problem is this friction inherent in the system, and that really constrains the way people really want to live their lives and experience their passions for sports and wellness and it's both on the individual level and it's on a family level. So we realized if you could aggregate the playing and training services from multiple sports in one place, deliver services in a vertically integrated way, so we deliver both learn to play all the way up to elite travel experiences. We host events, tournaments, combines, et cetera. And then we wrap around that a hospitality experience with full service restaurant, med spa, health club, et cetera. You could create something that would become the center of the universe in every community where you built one. And so the size of our business and the necessity to scale it is really the result of trying to solve that problem of friction that exists in the way the modern family lives their lives. And that's really the lens through which we come at our entire business, is the lens of the consumer, and trying to identify the problem, the big problem that needs to be solved, and then the strategy and the tactics and the organization flows from there. And that's kind of how we approached our business and built it. The St. James opened at the end of 2018. In 2021, we had more than 2 million visits. We were the largest leisure destination, most visited leisure destination in the Washington region. We're on track for 3 million visits this year. We rolled out a new product to compete in the health club category called the St. James Performance Club. We opened our first location in Reston Town Center, which is another suburb of Washington in Northern Virginia, and we're opening a second one of those in downtown Bethesda at the end of this year. We've launched a digital app and other events and experiences, and it's really all focused on trying to create a frictionless environment where the whole family can pursue their passion for sports and wellness in a way that is really high quality and hospitality driven.
Awesome, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about strategy. Everyone aspires for growth and increasing the bottom line. So how do you know when you're ready? I mean, plain and simple. And really, what strategy pieces are critical for success, and what metrics should be in place? Why don't we kick it over to you?
You want me to
Start on
start?
your end. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, no. So I would say two things, and they're sort of the top and the bottom of the whole process. So one is North Star. A lot of you guys probably are building companies, and I think one of the things that's absolutely critical, important that we look for every time we invest is what is the North Star of that company? What is that vision that you have? What is that, who, the why, the how, the what, all of that sort of encapsulated into one thing. And I think that's important because the one thing that happens consistently is that things don't go to plan. Right, and so you're going to get all kinds of curveballs thrown at you on an annual basis of things not working, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing that you have to be able to do when those curveballs come is bring it back to vision and bring it back to that North Star, so you can sort of keep that clear as you're executing and trying to scale. And I think on the bottom side of it, it's unit economics. And anyone who's received investment from us probably hear us talk maniacally about that, because once you get the unit economics right of your business, whatever those are, that is the building block. And if that is a positive unit economic model, you can scale it, right? So that North Star and those unit economics are kind of what we look for when we add investment capital to really try and scale something.
I think it's important that when you do that you don't forget about the people that you're acquiring, and they weren't stupid in the first place to get you to a point to where they're going to be bought. That you come in overarching and you say, okay, we have a vision that we think we can take it to a bigger scale than you're at right now. That's great. You should definitely have that kind of motivation. But you need to bring the current people along with them, right? You need to protect the people that actually got the business to where it was. And it just can't be, okay, everyone, now we're going to follow this new direction that we want to go. So I think I'm very employee-centric when I manage teams and everything, and try to be a better listener than I am a communicator. And like in my situation right now, we inherited a company that was just, the timing was perfect for Marty when he was taking on Dreams Park, which is, by the way, our competition is 15 miles down the road. And of course, Ripken and athletics and Perfect Game and U-Trip and everybody is also our competition, obviously, and everything with that. But what's interesting is that what I found there, actually, if I can relate to a story, when I was with ESPN during its unbelievable historic growth period, right? And we were building buildings all over the world, and I had this wonderful job that I was in charge to go to these different places. So we went to Mexico City. We had just launched ESPN Mexico, and we were building a brand new facility, and one that was badly needed. So me and my team went in and everything, and we started to take on meetings about what was important to their marketplace. And I went in and said, okay, this is what we do in Bristol, and this is how we're going to try to do things, and we're, in this big HD push and all these different things like that. And after the first day, one of their senior guys were out at dinner and everything. He pulled me aside, and he goes, can I help you with your communication style? And I said, absolutely. I'm always open to hear something like that. He goes, you got to stop saying this is how we do it in Bristol and this is how you're going to do it here. It's offensive to the team that's here listening to you right now. We got it that you guys are the goose that lays the golden egg and that you guys are going to make us better and all that kind of stuff. He goes, but your message is absolutely falling short on these people. And it was like, I cannot thank that person enough because I'm telling the story today as if it just happened. And I went to bed that night thinking that I had just kind of violated everything that I'm about taking care of people first and everything. I started out the next day and I literally apologized about being the ugly American in the room that thinks that we're better than you and that we have all the right answers and everything like that. And I literally stopped speaking for the next 3 days and just did a ton of listening. And over time, the trust started to build back. And the same thing, I try to now take that in what we're doing with Cooperstown All-Star Village is that, look, Harrison Blitzer and everything that on all the different places that we're doing, it's a lot of firepower to bring into this youth sports arena and everything. And we could easily just go in and dominate and say this is the direction that we're going. But they got there and they're very, very popular business and is doing really well. So I don't want to crush the foundation in which we're doing something. So I think the message that I want to get out is if you're in this merger or this acquisition mode type of situation, is take care of the people that got them to the point that you wanted to acquire them. Don't forget about them. Listen to them.
Awesome perspective. Yep. Go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, I actually think that there's actually a common linkage between what Cole said and what Rick said. And, it's really about having a shared vision. On any team that we've ever been a part of, any team we've played on, new sports, any team we've been on in business, the organization and the team collectively have a shared vision that people have to be very, very clear about. And then, in order to get people clear on that vision, you've got to create alignment and buy-in. And so that means talking and listening, having a conversation, having an exchange, and helping to make sure that people really understand why this vision is important. Because if people understand why the vision is important, even if it's a different vision than they had spent a bunch of time working on, they can get behind that and they can get aligned to that, right? And then if you have the unit economics that then support the vision and support a business that actually works, because we all want to work in businesses that work because in part it's going to help us do the things that we need to do for our families and help our colleagues do the things they need to do for their families, right? So when you get all those things in alignment, then you can do great things, and you can bring together people from a wide range of backgrounds, people who have a wide range of skill sets, and everybody can be, to borrow from the previous session, they can be an all-star in their role. And that to me is really the big challenge in scaling a business. And you can scale with organic growth and investment capital, you can scale with acquisitions, you can scale in a combination of ways. But you really got to create that alignment all the way through and have a unit economics that actually support the proposition. And then you've got a real business, and you can start to move with great momentum when you have those pieces in place.
Fantastic perspective. Thank you all. So Eddie, we're going to kick it over to you to talk a little bit about organizational structure. I know part of Manhattan Soccer Club's tremendous growth was all possible due to some adjustments that you made coming into the organization. So I'd love for you to elaborate on that.
Sure. So Manhattan Soccer Club began as an outcropping of an ASO league, for those who are familiar. And there were some parents who thought that it could be a little bit more competitive in the 90s. They wanted to see some more training, some different levels of competition, and they formed a Manhattan Soccer Club. And it went on for quite a while, but quite frankly, it was a collection, and not a bad collection, but a collection of what would be a feudal system. Teams and parents hired their own coaches, they paid their own coaches, they decided where they were going to go. They wore the Manhattan Soccer Club badge, but aside from that, there was no alignment, there was no strategy, and everybody owned their own little piece. And we, when I say we, it was a board of folks who were volunteers, some with long-term stakes in the club and others who were new like me, decided that if we were going to do something different and something better, that we had to have the shared vision that everyone talked about and still retain the strength of what we might call a neighborhood. So we formed a corporation, and it was a painful process. There were many people who didn't believe it should be centralized, who didn't believe that we should have oversight over the hiring and the assignment to teams and the scheduling and all of the things that we ultimately took credit for, or that we ultimately did. But it was the thing that made it possible for us to get to the number of players that we have today, which is a huge responsibility, and to take on the financial commitments, whether it's for facility rentals, of which we do in a big way in New York at Soccer Roof, for those who are familiar in both Brooklyn and Long Island City. And most recently, our biggest opportunity, we financed a turf field with lights, huge thing in Manhattan for those who don't live here, at the College of Mount St. Vincent in exchange for a 10-year use of the field. So none of that would have been possible as individuals, as teams doing as well as they might, creating a good experience for their kids without that shared vision and alignment. And I guess there's one other thing that I'd like to add and emphasize. What the word scale and building, I think we all know what they mean, but never losing sight of the personal aspect of your business, answering emails, treating the folks who are coming in, which we do, on the phone, speaking to them, reassuring the parent of a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old who's never played soccer before, treating everyone the same, truly, and making sure to keep those touch points going throughout their careers at our club and wherever else they're going to be. So that's really a big thing for us.
I'd love to shift the conversation to technology, and I promise this is not a League Apps plug or a League Apps question, but I'm curious to hear from each of you about how technology has impacted the ability to grow and scale the business, and also how it could have impacted it better. So Craig, maybe we can start with you and go down the line.
Sure. So our business is in many ways 15 different businesses all in one. And so there's a massive technology problem that is presented because there are different softwares available or technologies available that may focus on a restaurant business or a sports business or a health club business, but they are not all designed to talk to one another. And so we've spent a tremendous amount of time and capital developing integrations of what are disparate and often kind of incompatible systems to try to create that frictionless experience for the customer. Because what we want them to see on their phone, on our website, et cetera, is one seamless experience, a single pane of glass. Really, really, really difficult. And we've had to change constituent systems multiple times. We've also had to start developing our own systems in order to do things in a way that we need to do them for our customers that certain software providers just aren't able to do or aren't willing to do because they have a different business model. We have, though, found really great partners, some of whom who've said, hey, we see your vision, we see the power of it, and we think that we should be helping to enable that. And so League Apps has been one of those partners for us. But we have a whole software development team. We invest a tremendous amount in software development because this fragmentation that I described, which is a kind of one of the sources of inspiration for us to even start a business in the first place, in large part, technology can help solve some of that. And so we know we have to be excellent on the technology front in order to achieve our goals from a business perspective, and most importantly, from a customer experience perspective.
Yeah, I agree with a lot that you said, Craig. obviously the St. James is a lot larger than Richmond Volleyball Club. I think I was brought here for my small experience compared to all you guys. Y'all are huge.
Don't sell yourself short. It's an awesome organization.
But we, within our club, have a lot of different businesses. We have a cafe, we have the adult leagues, we do private lessons, we have camps, we have, of course, the travel teams and all of that. And like you said, trying to get that so that there's a seamless experience for our customers. And quite frankly, we've fallen short of that so far. And we've been spending a lot of capital, working with an IT consultant over the past year, trying to identify the best way to marry some systems
Sure.
and make that a better experience. And it's a huge challenge, you know, and we don't have the deep pockets that you guys do, but
Well, listen, we haven't solved it either. if we had,
that
I'd
makes
probably
me
have
feel a
more
little
hair.
better. But yeah, it's technology is huge.
Yeah.
It does make a challenge.
You know, I came from arguably one of the leaders in sports technology with ESPN, and then to Formula One, which was just eye-opening of how they communicate globally. Like as a car is on the track, it is their technology and their diagnostics are literally being beamed to Japan. The car is being analyzed in 4,000 different places on the car, beamed right back, and they are literally making decisions as the driver is taking a lap. And there's guidance along the or there's places along the track that is just constantly feeding just amazing amount of information. To then coming to Cooperstown All-Star Village, and we literally, you guys, I am not joking, we literally inherited a company that did pen and paper. We had 680 teams last year, and every single team sent in a book of paper like that on March 1st for the final registration, plus checks and all these types of things, because the former owner, and I respect him highly, was like, I don't want to spend money to have somebody else do this part for me. I'll just do it and everything like that. Growth was obviously going to have a limit, which is where we come in and all that. So we come in, John Semmel, our vice president of business ops, who has a lot more experience in youth sports than I did, said, look, we got to start bringing some people. Immediately got, league apps involved. Focus on the Field came on and like saved the day as we're right now doing registrations. HubSpot has been a dream for us with geo-marketing and understanding how we can get in touch with people. So it's funny when Jeremy yesterday put up that slide of that one company with 20 logos on it, and this is how they're doing business. I completely related to that because we are going towards that, right? You can't do this without help. And certainly not, I only have 12 full-time people on my staff, right? And so I look around and I was like, God, I'd love to have more people, but then I weigh that against, well, if I could actually go pay a company and get 60 people at the same price that I might be able to get one person. So that's the balance that we're constantly weighing with technology.
Sure. So I began with a company in, I think, 1996 that wanted to be on the internet, and they didn't have an inventory, but I mean, literally, it did not have an inventory. You required a book clerk to know that that book was on that shelf somewhere, and if that book clerk was out that day, you were pretty much out of luck. So nothing I found in youth sports was as daunting as getting and finding a way to get the building wired and get that inventory online and ultimately create something that everybody in the store and our customers could see. So cut to now, I was fortunate enough to come to the first NextUp conference, and I knew nothing about league apps, but I met that gentleman in the audience right there, and he showed me some things that he thought he could do for Manhattan Soccer Club that have, quite frankly, almost all have come to fruition. This is not a paid plug, I'm telling you guys. I'm speaking from the heart. With Melissa, with the whole team here, we did not have a way to collect payments in any kind of way that we could all see that was easy for the customer, that was easy to administer. And right now, we've been able, or over the last few years, have been able to shift almost entirely our focus away from collections to actually having those conversations with our customers, with our parents, with our coaches, with our players that don't involve money, because these guys have really, really taken care of it. We still work a lot off of Google Sheets, and I don't think we're ever going to give them up. in a certain way, a lot of shared stuff. But also through League Apps, I've met partners that, Team Genius is probably here in the audience somewhere, and we're going to be working with them. We've been introduced to a lot of possibilities, and sometimes it takes a long time to decide that's the right one to get there, but we're bringing more technology to help serve our customers better. So there we go.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I'd add to all of that is the other lens on this is the youth themselves, right? When we're in front of a whiteboard with our investment team and we're kind of putting together our investment strategy for youth sports, we draw this diagram where we do one huge circle and we write the word physical in it, which is kind of the physical infrastructure, everything that you all do. And then we draw an overlapping circle next to it and we write the word digital, right? And where those two worlds overlap, we draw a line to it and we write in big, all caps, youth culture lives here, right? Is that convergence between digital and physical. And I think what we've seen in youth sports over the last 10 years since we started Elysian Park is that almost all of the technology so far has been aimed at the organizations, starting with that registration layer and then starting to move down into serving kind of B2B purposes. Obviously the families touch that, to a degree, but the youth really don't. And I think we're about to enter a new cycle where that technology is going to start coming further downstream and things are going to get really electric. I think some of the stuff that the leagues are thinking about and kind of connecting fandom from a professional league down through to the youth and looking for conduits to do that. I think it's going to be kind of the new frontier of tech in youth over the next 5 years.
Awesome.
I agree 1,000%. I mean, the St. James, we're building an omni-channel platform, digital and physical, because we have these physical locations that we run. We also have training content and experiences. And like I was saying earlier, we really want to be able to bring it all the way to this for every single person, and allow them to interact with our destinations, our content, our experiences, or take it with them wherever they go. And that's a huge problem to solve, right? Huge, difficult, expensive problem to solve, but it is where I think the future is, and that's really where the customer is. And so because we're focusing on maximizing human potential, like that's the mission of our company, that's what we have to be doing in order to service that vision. So.
100%. Awesome. Thank you all for your perspective on that. So Rick, I want to talk a little bit about risk. Keep me honest here, but in our previous conversations, I believe that's very core to your philosophy as a business leader and someone who has helped some serious businesses grow. So what can you tell us about what we can learn from the risks you've encountered in your career?
Well, everything we do has risk involved. It's like, are we risking about, where are we at with our current customer base? I completely appreciate Eddie's point about communicating one-on-one with the customer and being real with them on an individual basis when you have them in front of you. Treat them like they're the most important person in front of you. But then more kind of macro-wise is that when you start to now scale the company and we want to obviously grow, we just bought a huge piece of land behind us that we have to now make a decision on what we're going to do. And the easy, low-hanging fruit is to just go and build more bunkhouses and go ahead and build more baseball fields and just, start really crushing, the whole idea about 12U and everything like that. But the great thing is, once again, that we've been talking about is that there is a bigger view about where we're going to go. Do we want to get into girls softball and crush girls softball? Because I think it is completely underserved. The teams that are the people out there doing girls softball right now are doing an awesome job, but it's underserved. And I think that we can do what we're doing right now for girls softball in Cooperstown. I think you can't just say, oh, it's just because it's the boys and the dad that want to go see the Hall of Fame. That's BS. I totally do not subscribe to that. I think that stick and ball sports are, to the girls, as important to the girls as it is to the boys, and stuff like that. So, and then there's performance centers ideas, and there's these other things ideas, and all the things that you just get are thrown at you like at a conference like this. Wow, we should maybe think about where we're headed. The area like I have zero experience in with that would be gaming, right? And I understand it's blowing up. I know nothing about gaming. If they decide to go gaming, I am the wrong CEO for the job, and will admit it and take a back seat. But risk is all about where do you want to take that next step, and then where are you going to put your funds, and so we do it on a daily basis.
And I can say as an ex-softball player and a very avid baseball fan, I would have killed for the Cooperstown experience growing up, so love that idea. Darcy, so growth for you has involved efficient partnerships and community organizations, local government agencies. I'm not sure everyone thinks of that as like these growth opportunities, but can you say more about how this has worked for you and the club?
Sure. So I've always come from a mindset of being part of the community, networking out there, and I'm an introvert and it's not fun, but it's just part of the job and you got to do it and get out there and meet people and build relationships. And it has really paid off for Richmond Volleyball Club. So, we're not scaling to the level that you're hearing up here where somebody's coming in and acquiring us, but we've been incredibly successful for more than 40 years. We're a little bit of an anomaly in that we're not just youth sports. We actually started as with adult leagues. And that has been a core product for us all of those years because we've had steady demand for that. We have leagues 6 nights a week, and that's a good, you talk about unit economics, that's a good profit margin on that program. And that helped us build a reserve to one day where we said we're ready to buy a building. So that was a little bit of a challenge. We purchased a building of our own. We had good credit. We've been doing things really well for a while. We've been running some tournaments. I always, as a nonprofit, I liken those tournaments to American Cancer walks or runs or those kinds of things. The tournaments are our fundraisers. This is where we, get the extra money to build our reserves and things. So we'd been in there for a little while. I was doing the things that, as the executive director, I felt like I needed to do. Getting to know my county supervisor, having meetings with them, making sure they knew me, knew the county manager, those kinds of things. And boy, did that pay off. We'd had competition. Richmond's really funny. The river runs through the middle, and it's this whole north-south, whatever, and the people on the north side are like, oh, we don't go over the south side of the river, kind of thing. And there was this other club that had been operating over there for years, and they went out of business, and I saw that as an opportunity. I said, okay, there's not a volleyball club over there. What can we do? Started looking around, couldn't find anything. Talked to the EDA over there, and they came back, I'm not, this great business negotiator or whatever. I'm pretty open and frank about what we can do and whatnot, and had been very open with those guys. This is what we can afford. They came back and we're going to build you this building. It's going to cost this much per month. And I was like, we can't afford that. I told you that, So that kind of went around for a little while and stopped. And we were back to square one. What are we going to do? And lo and behold, the county administrator in Chesterfield County retired, and deputy county manager over here in Henrico, where we were, that I had been building relationships, took that job. He knew us. He knew what we brought to the table. He said, we're going to make this happen. And built this building. And, if you're familiar with volleyball, we're kind of out there on our own a lot of times. We're not like soccer or football or baseball where the county or the municipality is building fields for you that you can use. You're looking for warehouse space that's not being used, and can I repurpose that and use it for volleyball? So this was really exciting for us, in that they built this building for volleyball. So we actually had the right ceilings, we had the right space around our courts. It's a beautiful building, and we lease it back from the county and for an incredibly cheap rate, and what we could afford as a nonprofit. And and they saw the benefit because we'd been in the community for so long and running those tournaments. Sports tourism, they understood what that would bring to the community, and this area that they were reviving. We were going to be bringing customers, hundreds of customers in there every day, coming to this building, who'd shop at the grocery store, who'd go to the fast food places and things like that. And so that was just, if we hadn't had that relationship, I don't think that ever would have happened. And so having known that county manager, him knowing us, when he went over there, he understood that we would be good partners, sound financial partners. So we did that. And another funny thing is, prior to that, it's just amazing what can happen sometimes. We were in a meeting with our county supervisor and the county manager talking about the convention center. Anyway, we're getting up to leave the meeting. County supervisor just kind of, yeah, you know, we're building this new park. And I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. How about putting some sand courts in there? And he did. We got 8 sand courts out of that. Never would have happened. Just threw it out there. So, you know, I really think it's important to build those relationships, even though you might think, oh, they're not doing anything for us. You don't know what might come down the road.
All
So,
about who you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So, yeah, even though we're, you know, we probably have close to 3,000 members, so we're not, you know, super small, but we are just local. You know, we're not
It's a lot
many
of people to take
locations
care
all
of.
over Virginia or the states, but
Yeah.
it makes it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, so,
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
thank you. So before the fun stuff where we kick it over to you guys to ask your questions, I got one more for Cole coming down to you. So you have a significant experience in investor and as an entrepreneur, and your work focuses on evaluating young companies in the sports and entertainment space. And at the same time, you approach this work with an emphasis on focus itself. Can you give us a window into how you approach this and why focus
Yeah.
is so important?
It is. You know, I think focus, and I told Brian and Jeremy I wanted to talk about focus here because I think it's, you know, it seems so simple. It seems so obvious, right? You're going to focus on things, right? But you would be amazed. You know, I've been, you know, one of the things I guess I wanted to share that I've learned over this, you know, sort of 25 years I've been doing this, either on the venture capital side or as a CEO entrepreneur building my own company, is just how often and frequent people get defocused when they're trying to build and scale. And you know, there's that old Warren Buffett quote that I love, that the only difference between highly successful people and successful people is that the highly successful people say no to almost everything, right? And I think we see in so many of our companies this tendency to want to do more and to want to go wider before they go deeper, right? And that pattern repeats itself. We talk all the time in the venture business about patterns and pattern recognition, because particularly in the early stage when you don't have a lot of data to analyze and look at and do all kinds of financial engineering and all that stuff, it's really about people and it's about strategy and it's about product and it's about go-to-market motion. And to get that, the physics of all that to work, you have to be focused. And I think that's probably the one thing that, you know, as you are trying to scale your organizations, to think hard about that. And that's everything from who your customer is, right? We talk all the time about, you know, at the early stages, much more wanting to have a small group of raving fans as our customer base than a bigger group of people who are just like, right? Especially in youth sports with how much churn there is from club to club to club, right? And the same thing goes, you know, in terms of the products that you're building if you're on the technology side. And quite honestly, the same thing goes when you're dealing with your boards, right? I don't know how many CEOs are in the room of your organizations today, but even when you're dealing with boards who will come and bomb in, right? Like we've got 60 companies that we have to deal with. So board members love it when we come bombing in, and we have like the random idea generation factory with some of the board members, which, you know, sometimes they're great ideas, but other times they're defocusing. So, you know, as you're trying to scale your business, just don't forget that. To me, it's like it's so obvious yet elusive to so many companies.
Fantastic. All right, well, audience, who has some questions for this group? Mark Yasowitz, you're up.
My question is that most leaders who are trying to scale businesses eventually realize that they can't do it alone, and that they need to sort of find and nurture and attract and retain that sort of secondary or tertiary level management. I wonder if you could comment on how you guys are, or what tactics you're using to find that next layer that can help you scale your business while you can focus on, you know, the new strategy, I guess, for the existing business.
Sure, I'll take that. With our business, you know, one of the unique aspects of it is that it's already a partnership between myself and my co-founder, Kendrick Ashton. We've known each other since August 1994 at the CAF at the Causeway in Mary. So we go way back. But we come to our business with the perspective of being teammates and the fact that we need teammates to help us grow. And so that allows us to, from the very beginning, think about how we could attract people who share our vision and share our mission, and want to build the same kind of great customer experience that we want to deliver for each and every person that walks through our doors, and the same kind of team culture. And so really focusing on that kind of alignment and having that team ethos from the very beginning has been key to our success. Because listen, I don't want to do everything. Our company started with 2 people doing everything, and I remember what that's like, and I don't want to do that, right? So I want to find people who want to put their shoulder to the oar as well. And you have to, and it can sometimes be difficult in organizations, depending on your size or where you are in the stage of your growth, to create the kinds of financial incentives that allow you to compete with the Googles of the world, the law firms of the world, the McKinseys of the world, wherever talented people work, right? So what we try to do is really drill in on what are the core skills that we need, but importantly, equally as important, do these people really believe in what we're trying to achieve? Because if you have that, both in an individual and collectively across the organization, you will figure out how to close some of those skill gaps. There are going to be some skills that you absolutely have to have and you can't compromise on, but because we're also very much focused on the kind of vision for the business and the culture we're trying to create, you'll find people who are attracted more to that than they are to money. You'll also find people who rise to the occasion and come from a background that may not have been what you would have typically thought about when you said, hey, we need this kind of person in this kind of executive role. We promote tremendously from within. I've got a couple of my colleagues here, my teammates here, who we've promoted multiple times, and some of whom have been with us from the very beginning. And so if you create that kind of environment, you will start to generate the kinds of candidates, both internally and externally, who will really help you, get where you want to go.
Yeah. Echoing Craig, I mean, I think something that we've done, and it's a struggle, because most of our employees are coaches and they're working on the field. Many of them, most of them are part-time. Part-time in the sense that they've got a day job, they're a teacher, they're doing something else, and then they're working at what they love as a soccer coach. What we've looked over for in the past few years are folks in the club who express an interest in some other aspect of what we're doing, right? It could be marketing, it could be, registration, it could be some sort of administration, and look for those who want to become full-time in youth sports to help them transition. It's a strength for us. It's a real positive for them. But really look from within as much as you possibly can, and find those folks who are really, really committed to the job they're currently doing and want to show their talents in other ways, and actively pursue that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, as a nonprofit, when we know that there's a certain skill set or a certain project or next thing that we're going to do, you intentionally recruit for that on the board. You have a board of directors, you need to use them and find the right people to be on that board at the right time. And so that has to be very intentional.
Absolutely. Good people make everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Other questions?
This question is for Cole. Cole, you mentioned 60 portfolio companies. How do you balance integration and partnership of your portfolio companies with focus, and how does that ultimately play into kind of your investment thesis of looking at new companies and what you're looking to next to invest?
You mean like how our portfolio companies cooperate with each other?
Right.
Was that?
Whether that's partnership or
Yeah.
integration between them.
Yeah, so really interesting question. And one of the things we try and do when we invest is we don't want to ever invest into 2 things that are competing with each other. And so we segment the market. So if you look across our portfolio in youth sports, you'll see it very segmented. Either it's segmented horizontally in terms of like 4 to 8, 8 to 12, 12 to 15, 15, through high school. So you sort of separate high school elite travel from more base of the pyramid, and we have companies that are sort of addressing different segments, or we have companies that are just cutting vertically straight through, right, in one sport, which I actually think is a really compelling next phase topic as well at some point. But I think to answer your question, we try and avoid competition, and then because we're all ultimately pursuing the same North Star collectively, right? We're trying to we're trying to grow youth sports. We're trying to do youth sports right? And there's a lot of youth sports done wrong right now. I think most of us probably recognize it when we see it. And I think there's huge opportunities for collaboration that way. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, that ends up working. Every once in a while, companies evolve. And all of a sudden, 2 companies that were in different lanes are starting to bump into each other and converge a little bit. And then you kind of have to just have the high quality conversations. We actually had a little session, it was a fun session that Brian and Jeremy put together yesterday with all the Elysian portfolio companies that were here in a room yesterday. We're talking about baseball with some of the folks from Major League Baseball about how do we cooperate to grow the game, right? And so sort of start with that approach, and then you just sort of have to work through any of the little conflicts that might happen along the way. Was that the question? Yeah.
Can we do one more? Look at the back. All right. One last question. Be shy. Oh, there we go.
Scaling, one of the comments you gave yesterday, I think to start off is that most of, it seems like, doesn't seem you guys have the facts on, that 80% of sports is controlled by a small number of clubs and stuff like that. How, if you're a smaller club, and it's all relative in the scheme of things, but how do you scale without kind of like, we just run into like people that just have a ton of money around you, whatever the case is. And I have like personally mine is a little bit of a different purpose. What I want to do, and like I've kind of gone through my trials and tribulations the last couple of years, especially during COVID, where people thought they buy pennies on the dollar or worse. And like, how do you scale and try to compete with like the people that are like beyond, like where that you can't touch? Like there's something, and in my opinion, I'm in lacrosse, so it's just kind of like, and it's not a disrespect to that, whatever the case, it's just that I'm like a mom and pop store, basically, lacrosse kind of deal that way.
I got 3 lacrosse kids going through it now. No, I think it's, you want to start? Who wants to?
I'll just say this. What we try to do, and we're maybe a little bit larger than you, but in some ways are still small in a young business. We try to focus relentlessly on the customer and what the customer needs, right? Because the customer is the decider in this marketplace. And what was a big company yesterday can become a very small company tomorrow if the customer chooses to go elsewhere. And that happens in our economy in a bunch of different industries. And so starting by winning the customer and making sure that you have a really customer-centric approach to everything that you do builds those raving fans that bring other raving fans and allow you to grow and scale. So that to me is like, that's the place you start. There are other considerations around money and fields and other kinds of things that you need in order to grow your business. But if you don't have the customer in the first place, none of those problems really matter. So I would start there.
So in your particular case, like how did you build from I can't even imagine what your place looks like after the description.
Spectacle.
What was stage 1? Like, I mean, we're talking about scaling. But
Sure.
What exactly what did you build? Did you just build like Disney, or did you like build what was it like?
We did build it all at once, but we had to start by developing a really clear thesis on what the opportunity was and demonstrate that there was sufficient demand for what we wanted to build in order to be able to attract the capital necessary to actually build what we wanted to build. And so again, really talking to the customer, really understanding the pain points, looking at the existing marketplace, looking at what people do well, what people don't do as well, and trying to identify a problem that kind of cuts through the entire industry that nobody is really focusing on. That was the angle that we took in order to build our business. But it wasn't easy, and and a lot of people told us, no way, this will never work. You guys aren't focused enough. That's going to be there. But we were just relentlessly focused on solving this problem, and we were able to find enough people who appreciated it and understood the kind of value of solving that problem that we could then attract the capital necessary.
Can I do 30 seconds on it?
absolutely.
Time? So that is the essence of entrepreneurialism right there. Like, so and I love, it's frustrating, but there's an opportunity with that. And so one of our portfolio companies, EL1, which some of you probably met while you're here, they're now partnered with Major League Baseball. They're going to be in 40 facilities by the end of this year. They've received a lot of capital, et cetera, et cetera. But it started with an early retired minor league baseball pitcher who was holding clinics on rainy tennis courts up in the Pacific Northwest. That's where it started. But what he did starting there was he innovated. He did something that was different. He did something that the other clubs weren't doing that created that energy, right? And it was differentiated. And he did catch a break. He happened to run into Nomar Garcia-Parra one day, and Nomar's like, man, this is a really innovative business model you have here. It's different from anything else that's been done. Let me introduce you to some people, right? And then he introduced Aaron, the founder of EL1, to the executive team at the Los Angeles Dodgers, and then we got pulled in, and we're like, this is actually really interesting. Right now, it's a kind of a junkyardy operation up in the Pacific Northwest. Can't even balance a balance sheet. From a financial perspective, it was a mess, but the people were amazing, and they were doing something really good for the community, and it was a differentiated model, and that got the first investment, right? And then it's one step after another from there, and ultimately now Major League Baseball is a national rollout partner. But it started on a tennis court, right? So if you innovate and if you're entrepreneurial and you do something different, you can kind of tap into some of the capital stories that you've heard.
I have a tractor in my backyard. I just couldn't find field space, so I just got to tore out my backyard and built a field in my backyard.
Yeah, got it.
That made it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining this session, and to everyone on the panel, thank you so much. Congratulations on all of your growth and successes, and really appreciate you joining us.